This presentation is for Week 3 Ancient History. My name is Chandler Halverson, and I'll be answering the question, how did the East India Company take over an entire subcontinent? First, let's talk about what the East India Company is. If you've ever seen Pirates of the Caribbean or paid attention in your 8th grade history class, you may have heard of the East India Company, also known as the East India Trading Company. They were a privately owned company started by 200 merchants. Queen Elizabeth I granted them a charter to trade in Asia, specifically the East Indies. They traded goods such as tea, cotton, spices, and silk, which were among the commodities of higher class citizens. As the company grew, they formed a standing army to protect their assets. Because of the high-end products they were trading, they quickly became the world's trading superpower. Now back to the question at hand. How does a privately owned company take control of an entire subcontinent? Imagine companies like Walmart, Apple, or Amazon having a standing army and taking over an entire subcontinent. It would be strange and unthinkable to us, but this is exactly what happened. There were 4 phases that led to the East India Company ruling over the subcontinent. Phase 1. The East India Company's competitor was the Dutch East India Trading Company. Because of the high competition of silk and spices, they were forced to find other things to trade, so they turned to cotton. This turned out to be a very good move, as they monopolized on this product and did very well. Phase 2. Because of the company's rising assets, they became more prone to attacks from people who opposed the company's presence. As a result, the company formed a standing army to protect their interests. Phase 3. The Battle of Plassey tipped the scales of how the company performed their business. Faced with an uprising led by Suraj-ud-Dawla, the company quickly gathered together and defeated the insurgent. Phase 4. Over the next few years, the company took full administrative powers over its territories, including the right to tax anyone living within its boundaries. However, as we know from history, taxation without representation never leads down a good path. In my own opinion, the Battle of Plassey marked the beginning of the end for the company. There were many things that brought the demise to the company, and I'll briefly cover them with you. The Industrial Revolution brought factories, which made it easier to make cotton and silk. The lower class could now afford high-end products, and people stopped buying from the company. Because of this, the company looked to China to buy tea as it was a hot commodity. The problem was that China only accepted silver, and the British were on a gold currency. To trade gold for silver and then trade silver for tea would be a fruitless enterprise for the company. Instead of trading silver, the company opted to trade opiates to the Chinese instead, which were illegal in China. Indians began planting opium farms, and the company began heavily taxing them so that the company could buy up the opium and trade with China. Not only was this unfavorable to the Indians, it was also unfavorable to the Chinese government, and opium wars between China and the company began. In the midst of this, Indians began to uprise against the company. In the Indian uprising in Delhi in 1857, many British soldiers and Indian citizens were killed, and the company, in retaliation, slaughtered thousands of Indians. After this atrocity, the British government dissolved the company and acquired all their assets, marking the beginning of the British Raj. In a quote in the 1874 Times paper, one writer wrote concerning the company, "It accomplished a work such as in the whole history of the human race no other company ever attempted, and as such is ever likely to attempt in the years to come."